Well, it's been maybe multiple years since I've done any sort of content focused on Dynasty quarterback rankings. And as I said on yesterday's stream, transparently, the reason I don't really ever do quarterback or tight end rankings in content anymore is because the viewership is always about as low as it possibly gets. So I am wanting to try something new today. Here on today's stream, we're going to go through my top 36 Dynasty quarterback rankings, and we will talk through them together on the stream. I want to hear your feedback. I want to talk it through, make sure we feel good about where these rankings are. I'll give you my rationale why. Now, you'll see a poll in the chat right now, okay, which is asking the question, is Josh Allen or is Drake May the quarterback one in Dynasty football right now? Currently, we have 18 votes there, and 55% of the chat is saying Josh Allen is quarterback one. I'm excited to have a conversation about that. However, we are going to do a giveaway today. We're always trying to show y'all some love for showing up to the stream. So if you want to win a live team playbook, today's giveaway code word is simply QB. That's it. All you got to do is like today's stream and type QB, and you're going to be automatically entered in to win a live team playbook. So again, if you want to enter that giveaway, that's how you can do so. What's up, everybody? I see you in the chat. What's up, Rash? We see MT. T. Gotzi's in the building. Oh, flattering me. What's up, NJ Casanova? NJ, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you win one of the FastDraft Origin tournaments? I swear I saw you number one like the entire year. I wanna know who won from our community. But let's go ahead and jump straight in to these rankings. Now, it was Casanova won. Hell yeah, man! Congratulations. So what was the payout? What did you end up walking away with, Casanova? That's awesome. I hope I think we were the reason you went to FastDraft, right? Which I'm happy about that. Congratulations. Anyway, okay, let's go to some quarterback rankings. I want this to be a collective effort. I want this to be a back and forth. I don't want it to just be my thoughts. We can have a conversation about where these these guys stand. Let's go ahead and jump into the first tier. All right, into that S tier. For me, there are two names and two names only. And quite frankly, I don't really mind which way you have them. Let's call it 1A, 1B between Drake May and Josh Allen. Like I said, I don't have a strong preference here. I really don't. If you can sell me on Josh Allen, you can sell me on Drake May. For Drake May, the guys over at Fantasy Stock Exchange made a very good point in saying that he is the ultimate flexibility plan, basically. Meaning, if you're wanting to rebuild, Drake May is a great asset. If you're wanting to, let's say sell Drake May and get a bunch of assets, if you're in a one-year punt or a big rebuild, he allows you to do that. Obviously, if you have Josh Allen over Drake May, it's not necessarily an issue, but it's going to be a much more difficult player to sell. Not that Josh Allen is an inferior player by any means, but what you have to think about is Josh Allen, there's only a select few amount of teams in your Dynasty League that are really going to want to buy a Josh Allen. Let's be real about that, right? I mean, if a third of your league is rebuilding, if one or two of them are committed to a one-year punt, then does that leave you 5 owners that might be interested in Josh Allen? And a lot of them probably won't have the assets to actually get it done. So I kind of understand where Fantasy Stock Exchange is coming from there, with there being more flexibility with Drake May. Now, if we compare these guys side by side in this season here in 2025, Josh Allen with a higher point per game finish, but honestly, Drake May right up there at quarterback 2 this year, 20.7 points per game. Drake May, higher passing attempts, completion percentage, passing yards, passing touchdowns per game, lower interceptions, a higher adjusted yards per attempt, which is a great number when you're looking at quarterbacks and what they can do through the air. Obviously, the ultimate cheat code for Josh Allen is what those legs can do. All right, we all know, from a rushing intents perspective, in the red zone, if you're inside the 10-yard line, Josh Allen is always going to be good for a rushing touchdown. And clearly, Drake May isn't used exactly the same way. So Like I said earlier, I think you can make a strong case between these two names. What I will say is if you think about the surrounding talent right now, I probably would give the edge to Drake May as well, just purely from a roster perspective. You know, when you look at the Buffalo Bills, you've got who is your number one receiver that you're throwing to? Khalil Shakir, right? With all due respect to Khalil Shakir, he should be your wide receiver 3 on your team, okay? This should not be a guy that you're funneling a lot of your targets through. Who else does Josh Allen have? Well, he has Keon Coleman, which the reports of Keon Coleman in the last 2 weeks with them firing their coach, hiring a new, the owner talking about how Keon was really a coaching staff move when they drafted him, and then there's all these videos coming out about Brandon Beane being all excited about Keon Coleman. Point is, from a weaponry perspective, it's an absolute mess in Buffalo. An absolute mess. In fact, your number one weapon is supposed to be Dalton Kincaid, but this man cannot stay healthy to save his life, all right? You put airbags all around his back, all around his legs, and he's still going to find a way to get injured. So that's the guy they want to funnel the offense through. He can't stay healthy. Khalil Shakir, who should be a wide receiver 3, is your wide receiver 1. The guy you drafted, to be your wide receiver 1, Keon Coleman, can't separate. Breaking news, he couldn't separate coming out of college anyway, and that just makes your life a little bit more difficult. Whereas if you look at the New England Patriots, right, they are set up, I think, better offensively. There's a lot more for Drake May to work with in the coming future. Yes, you have Stephon Diggs, who's that veteran presence, but you also have Kayshon Boutte, who really, started to show great strides in 2025, building on his previous campaigns. Kyle Williams, who hasn't really shown everything that he has just yet. But you've also got Travion Henderson, who's just an electric receiving running back out of the backfield. I also prefer the offensive line that they're building there in New England a little bit more. So, like I said, I think you can make a case for either one of these names. The Buffalo Bills, they walk into this year's draft with the 26th pick. Maybe they can add a weapon there. I don't know. It's a possibility. We'll have to kind of monitor that. New England walks into the draft with, a lot of picks, but they're still all, for the most part, late in the NFL draft. So, like I said, I think you can make a case for any of these guys being your quarterback 1. Right now, the chat officially has Josh Allen at 58%. 58% as their quarterback 1. Appreciate you guys being here. Again, if you're just joining, we are going to do a giveaway today for a live team playbook. All you have to do to enter is simply like the stream and type QB. That is the code word to enter today's giveaway. I appreciate y'all big time for being here with us. Let's hear from you guys. I want to hear from y'all, okay? Let's see. So Jonah says, I think it's about as 50-50 as it gets. Dante said Allen would be better if he had a second good receiver. MT2, says, yeah, decider is the age in Dynasty. To be honest, Drake over Allen. Dante says 58% of us smoke crack. So what can you do? I think it truly is up to the eye of the beholder when you're looking at that top tier. But can we all agree, before we move on, that really is the tier there, okay? May and Allen, that's where things stand at that top. I wouldn't put anyone else in that tier right here today. Let's jump into that second tier, and like I said, I want to hear your thoughts as we go. And my second tier begins with Jaden Daniels, and then it ends with Lamar Jackson. Let me tell you something about Lamar Jackson. I mean, the age is starting to creep up on him. I was really not prepared to see this. 29 years old. I'm starting to really question, like, how much do I want to invest in Lamar Jackson's career at this point, right? A quarterback where a lot of his production is coming through the ground, and a lot of his production through the air, he's really developed as a great passer in the last 4 or 5 years. But a lot of that is being helped out by the fact that the defense has to assess his rushing threat, and that's ultimately something that you have to, you got to have a spy on him. That's going to leave people in better coverages. But I was honestly shocked to look and say, oh, wow, he's already 29 years old. I'm still going to put respect on his name purely for the longevity here. But, Jaden Daniels, there's no way around it. After that rookie year of almost 21 points per game, finished as the quarterback 6, almost 70% of his passes completed. It's rough. It's rough to go from that and then look at 2025 and what happened. And not be disappointed. He only played 7 games. I know this. If you guys watch the Flock League, I traded for him right before he had all those injuries. He played 7 games, had 16 points per game. But the context is just so important. I just think it's just mega important to consider the context when you look at a name like Jaden Daniels, because I think he's done everything he possibly could this year. Terry McLaurin out for almost the entirety of the season. Deebo Samuel was a fine option. Obviously, the offensive line was a little bit up and down. The running backs, plenty of injuries, plenty of inconsistencies. The offensive line, plenty of injuries, plenty of inconsistencies. I mean, the guy is throwing to Jalen Lane, Chris Moore for half the year. So you cannot be pushing any panic buttons on Jaden Daniels, in my opinion. Absolutely not. It's just far too early to be panicking about Jaden Daniels, because the context tells you there's only up from here. And when you look at this squad, obviously heading into the draft, they have the 7th overall pick. I kind of hope they invest into offense, just simply because Jaden could really use some supporting cast. The issue is Washington doesn't have many quality picks in this draft, right? They've got their 1st round pick. They don't have their 2nd. All right. They've got a 3rd. They don't have their 4th. So they only have 2 picks in the first 4 rounds, but they could be impact picks. And in fact, I would not be surprised to see the Commanders trade down from 7 to garner additional picks in this draft. But if they were to stick at 7, I mean, there's a real possibility you could be adding a Carnell Tate, which would be a great addition to this team. Mekhi Lemon and Terry McLaurin on the same field. That is a dangerous threat. Jordan Tyson. There could be plenty of options that would fit in Washington. For my sake, as a Washington fan, I hope they don't go Jeremiah Love. It's not me being anti-Jeremiah Love. It's just they got a lot more problems to worry about other than their running back position. Their defense was getting absolutely torched. But I frankly don't care if their defense is bad if we can get more weapons around Jaden and keep him healthy. But Jaden Daniels is this ultimate cheat code, right? In his rookie year, over 52 rushing yards per game. We know how good he can be. He just needs to stay healthy. I think you're panicking if you're not considering him a locked and loaded top 7 pick in Dynasty startup drafts. For Lamar Jackson, I'm a little more concerned. I am going to give him respect just purely because of the career that he's had so far, right? I mean, think about it. Since 2019, let's go through this together. 27 points per game, 22 points per game, 20 points per game, almost 20 points per game again, 21, 25 points per game. And then last year, the fall off. Now, obviously, he dealt with some injuries himself, only played 12 games. And ultimately, it's a little more concerning for me just simply because of the age. How many of these rushing threats, which truly their fantasy points are reliant on their opportunities on the ground, how many of these guys have long sustained careers? They really need to develop their attributes over the course of, those first 5 to 10 years in the league. Do you think Lamar Jackson can develop and end up being, a really good passer towards the end of his career and not be so reliant on the run game? I don't know. That's a question that you're going to have to ask. But whole new coaching staff coming in there. I'm trying to put respect on his name. Before we jump into the next tier, do you guys think anybody else is worthy of being in this tier? At the moment, I'm not comfortable putting anyone else in the tier, but I want to hear what you guys have to say, right? I want this to be a back and forth conversation here. MTN says, I'd have to take Caleb Williams over Daniels due to the injury risk. It's an interesting point. I would really encourage you guys to think through how many quarterbacks have been injured that are not rushing quarterbacks, because that list is a lot bigger than you would realize. There's a lot of quarterbacks that have not, they're not known to being rushing threats, and Joe Burrow. I mean, we can go through these lists. So be careful having that being a narrative, in my opinion. Nathan says Jackson Dart's too low already. Scribble says Jaden Daniels, according to everyone, is dead. Career's over. Sell for a second. Yes, sell him to me. Let's see. Ratatouille says, no lie, my dad told me I'd have to give him JD plus something else for Purdy, which is that's insane. Maybe it's a great time to go buy Jaden Daniels. So we've got some people advocating for Caleb to be here. And I don't, we're going to have that conversation. I don't mind that. Ratatouille says, my dad told me Daniel's injury dropped his stock. And I was like, what? Purdy just missed time as well. Yeah, Purdy's another great example. I mean, how many quarterbacks can we name that have been injured over the course of the past 2 years? And a lot of them don't have any rushing upside that you even need to worry about. So, yeah, I agree with Lejon here, who says the injury concern conversation for quarterback is always so funny to me. Purdy, Herbert, Burrow, these guys never get mentioned for injuries. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes just got injured. Freak accidents happen. It's just, that's kind of the nature of the game. And ultimately, Jaden Daniels, I mean, you put any quarterback behind that offensive line and in that offense with that few amount of weapons, they're gonna try and overcompensate. And you saw that all year long. Okay, let's jump into the next tier. Again, I appreciate y'all being here with me. This is fun having these conversations. All right, tier number B or tier number 3. Now, let's be clear. I always say this, but for some reason, people don't hear me when I say it. When you look at a tier, I do not care how you rank the players. The reason I have tiers is because they are bucketed values. Meaning, if you're upset that Caleb Williams isn't at 5, if you're upset that Jalen Hurts isn't at 5 and Mahomes isn't at 8, we're on the same page. I don't care. You can put them in any direction that you want to, okay? I'm completely fine with that. If you want to, advocate for Caleb at 5 or any which way around, okay? These are the guys that I would value in that bucket. If you're in that late first, early second, mid-second range of a dynasty startup draft, these are the guys that I'm probably looking at targeting. Patrick Mahomes, I've already, said this many times in the offseason, but I had to kind of, wipe some egg off my face because I was not a big buy Patrick Mahomes guy last offseason, right? I was not someone who was actively looking to purchase him. I really thought this might be what we're going to get from Patrick Mahomes now, this 17, 18 point per game type of ceiling. I didn't see the offensive identity changing. And ultimately, Patrick Mahomes kind of turned the clock back and gave us about 80% of what his MVP seasons used to be. Obviously, the unfortunate part is he goes down with the injury. Now, there are already reports out there that Patrick Mahomes is wanting to be ready by the beginning of next year. I would be shocked, okay? I would personally be shocked if that actually happens. He tore his ACL, I believe it was December 15th. December 15th, he tears his ACL. I don't think there's going to be enough time for him to be ready at the beginning of the year. And I think they would be forcing it if he were. So I would expect him to miss at least the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season. And I would not be surprised if this is a scenario in which that timeline is not solidified and it just keeps stacking. It's week 7. Well, we don't have an update on Mahomes yet. It's week 8. Well, I think we might get him after the bye. Well, it's week 10. I think we're going to get him in week 11. And then what happens? Are the Chiefs 3-8? What's the point of bringing him back? So I'm saying that because there is a lot of risk. However, this is an asset that is going to retain value even for the next 4 years, even for the next 5 years. Patrick Mahomes is not, in my humble opinion, you guys can let me know if you disagree, there is very few things that can happen where he's just going to completely plummet his value. I don't see that scenario existing. He is a very safe asset to hold long term. In fact, if you are a 1-year punt, there's not maybe a better buy at quarterback in Dynasty than Patrick Mahomes. He might fit your timeline perfectly, but the reason I put him at the top of the tier is just the consistency he's had over the course of his career. Joe Burrow next. Speaking about guys who have dealt with injuries, my gosh, can Joe Burrow just stay healthy? But we all know this with Joe Burrow. If he's healthy, he's good for a 20 point per game season, right? He's good for 40 touchdowns. He's good for 4,000, 5,000 yards. And he's going to be accurate. He's got great weapons all around him. And, he's another one of these guys that's really safe. Just a guy that you can really count on as long as the health is there. Now, you look at between these two guys, you look at the Chiefs' weaponry, and I think they kind of need to rethink what the future of their team is going to look like. They drafted Xavier Worthy in round 1. It's not worked out. obviously. Rashee Rice has been a my guy for quite some time. The legal issues really make you question, can this guy just focus on football? Coming back from the injury, he looked great. Obviously, they've got a lot to deal with their cap. Their run game was at an all-time low last year, which is why you're constantly seeing people mock Jeremiah Love to them at 9. Obviously, if that were to happen, I don't think the Chiefs actually take a running back in the first round. I don't think they're going to do that. They don't build that way. And don't talk to me about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If anything, that's going to convince me more that this front office is not going to take a running back. Different players, obviously. But you're not funneling an offense through Travis Kelce anymore. It's not possible. Even if he comes back and plays, it's not possible. Okay? So if you're going to build around Rashee Rice, build around Rashee Rice, but who else? There's some major concerns. So if you were to say, Zach, I think I'm going to put Joe Burrow ahead of Patrick Mahomes, I think you have every reason to say that, and I'm not going to fight with you on it. I really wouldn't. Obviously, you got Chase. You got T. Higgins. That is true, Scribbles, which is, he says, don't worry, Zach. Bieniemy is going to fix the offense. It's funny because people look at the timeline with Bieniemy and what Patrick Mahomes did versus without him, but that timeline also fits Tyreek Hill. So we kind of have to factor both of those things in, but obviously the supporting cast for Joe Burrow is about as elite as it gets. And then do you want to play the youth card? Because you can totally play the youth card with Caleb Williams. You can totally do that. He has really, in the second half of this year, blossomed into everything we thought he could be. And Ben Johnson was the perfect fit. We all thought it was going to work out, and it really has worked out, I would say, even better than we had anticipated. Almost a 20-point per game season. The completion percentage certainly not where you want it to be at 58%, but you can see we've got things moving. We got things operating. Ben Johnson is really starting to outwork this entire game plan. Now, it should be noted that the Browns are in cap hell. I'm curious to see how they're going to manage that. They've got a lot of contracts they've got to figure out. But you want to talk about a guy who's set up to succeed in the future. I mean, let's be for real. Is there any player, is there any quarterback in this top 8 that is better set up for the future, next 3 years, than Caleb Williams as far as the surrounding talent? I don't think there is. I really think maybe you go Burrow because, that Chase and Higgins combo is just ridiculous. But with Jalen Hurts, we don't know what A.J. Brown looks like long term. I think Caleb Williams is probably the best setup quarterback of any of these guys that we've talked about. Even if they trade DJ Moore, right? You've got Rome Odunze, who I think is a great buy low right now. You've got Luther Burden, a well-known my guy for me last year's class. This time last year, 365 days ago, he was my wide receiver 1 in the class. You're starting to see why, towards the end of the year there. Colson Loveland, who looks like everything we thought he could be, right? An absolute superstar. The offensive line, drastic improvements, young players getting better, veterans contributing. I mean, even if you move on from DJ Moore, which that's not a bad wide receiver 3 to have on your team, is it? But even if you move on from DJ Moore, you still have so many pass-catching weapons, right? Just that combo of Odunze, Bird, and Loveland alone is just ridiculous. And I don't think they've found their running back of the future yet, but they're making the run game work as well with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, and both of those guys can do some work through the air. So I'm a big fan of the weaponry around Caleb Williams. I'm not going to sit here and say like Caleb is a superior talent to any of these other names on the board, but certainly you can make the case of all the weapons around him. He's got to be set up better than anybody else. He's got to be. To finish this tier, Jalen Hurts. And while I'm finishing this tier, tell me if you guys think there should be anybody else in this B tier. Is there anyone that you think I'm missing? Jalen Hurts is an interesting conversation because there's just been so much internal turmoil with this Eagles team this year. It's been nonstop. And any Eagles fan would tell you it's been impossible to watch. In fact, one of my good friends, Daniel Ilioy, he's a big Eagles fan, and he was just thrilled when they fired their offensive coordinator. We heard that Mike McDaniel was almost the offensive coordinator there in Philadelphia. I think they're still figuring it out now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that would have been awesome. But he's got great weapons around him, right? With Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley. But Saquon's getting up there in age. A.J. Brown's getting up in there in age. He might request a trade. And the question that is ever looming around Jalen Hurts is, how long are they going to allow the tush push to be around? How long are they going to allow us to watch this boring brand of football? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I mean, hey, if you got a way to win the game, if you got a upper hand over your opponent, then you take that chance. But let's be for real. Watching 7 to 10 tush push a game when the Eagles are on TV, it's not that interesting, okay? It's not that interesting. It's not great for TV. It's not great entertainment. And quite frankly, they're not consistent enough when they're actually refereeing that play, right? When they're trying to figure out, you know, which side of the line is too far across. Oftentimes the Eagles are getting away with, you know, kind of being offside themselves. So if we see that tush push taken away, I mean, I personally believe you're not seeing a 21 point per game scorer anymore. You're seeing a 17 to 19 point per game scorer. But there's a really safe floor there with Jalen Hurts. That contract is going to be really hard to get out of. Who do you guys think? Am I missing anybody? Am I missing anybody so far in our top 8? Is there any name that you would like to advocate to be here? Let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion. And like I already said previously, if you're just joining us, we are doing a giveaway today for one of our live team playbooks. All you have to do to enter that giveaway is like the stream and type QB. That is the code word for today. Want to hook you guys up for showing some love and hanging out with me here on today's stream. We have not ever done a live version of our quarterback ranking, so I'm trialing it out today. Want to know if you guys really enjoy it. Let's hear from you guys, though. MTN says, Burden is the future of Amon-Ra. I could totally see that happening. Ratatouille says, Chiefs are going to draft Love or get Breece Hall. That could be awesome. I could definitely see that happening. I could see Breece Hall happening. I don't think the Chiefs are going to draft a running back in round 1. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's the way that front office is going to operate. And again, I could be wrong. MTN says Mahomes is just like Tom Brady after he tore his ACL, still elite value. Yeah, I think we all agree. I would be shocked if Mahomes doesn't play another 8 years. He's just that kind of guy. I would be absolutely shocked if he's not playing another 8 years. Zoe says if McDaniels goes to the Chargers, you can make Herbert an argument. That is locked in, by the way. McDaniels will be the offensive coordinator for Los Angeles this year. Sports Talk says, I'm glad people are starting to recognize the true issue that will get tush push banned. It's not unfair play. Literally any team can do it to succeed. The problem is it's boring. 100% right. 100% right. All right, let's jump into that next tier, shall we? I think we should jump into that next tier. Okay, let's jump into the C tier here. And like I said earlier, I said this at the beginning of the B tier. I'll clarify again. If you're upset about how any of these guys are ordered, quite frankly, I just don't care. Order them however you want. These are bucketed values. I view them all the same. Meaning if you were to reach out to me in a Dynasty League and said, hey, how do you feel about swapping Dart and Nix? I say, I don't really care. All right. If I can find a way to win this trade and you want to swap me one of them, I'm going to do it. Hey, man, I got Purdy and, you have Trevor Lawrence. You want to work on a trade? Sure. Is there a way I can win this trade? Because I don't care if you value one over the other. So again, you can put Dart at 9. You can put Nix at 13. You can put Herbert at 12 and Purdy at the beginning. I don't care. I value all of these guys in that kind of same tier. And I view these guys as, if you're going to pass on quarterback early, and let's say you start off with a Jamar Chase, you come back around and get an Ashton Genty or a Trey McBride or a Drake London, then you're heading into that 3rd and 4th round. These are the guys that you're hoping are available. You're hoping that these guys can be your first quarterbacks if you're kind of building, in that nature where you're not really focusing on those quarterbacks too early. But Bo Nix at the top of this tier, obviously an awesome season. It started off rough. He was a my guy in redraft leagues this year. He was officially on that my guys list for me. I expected him to take a bigger leap from 18.6 points per game from 19.1. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, he was far worse than he was to end the year. I mean, there was a real a real growth, I would say, in that second half of his season. I mean, I was feeling real stupid having him on my guy in the first 7 weeks of the season. I, had him in the flock league as well. I just was like, oh no, what have I done? But really from about week 7 onwards, you start to see a real, improvement to his game. Why don't we look at that together? So let's go Bo Nix, and let's just have a look at his first and second half of the season. And let's make it weeks 1 to 7, 1 to 6 rather. Let's do that versus weeks 7 to 18. And you can really see a clear, stark difference, right? Obviously, the points per game are drastically different. Passing attempts go up, the completions go up, passing yards go up, almost 30 more passing yards per game. The adjusted completion percentage goes up. He just plays better. He just plays up to his talent. This is really, the version of Bo Nix I thought we would be getting the entire year. But he's got a great supporting cast around him. Obviously, Pat Bryant's starting to show some stuff. RJ Harvey's great out of the air. Cortland Sutton is a good veteran. But ultimately, it's just trusting in Sean Payton, who has just been such a great offensive mind over the course of, the past multiple decades. Right after that, Justin Herbert. You can make an argument that Herbert might be deserving of being higher than this, honestly, because he's got a great supporting cast around him. And it was the perfect storm, really, last year for the Chargers offense to fall apart. You lose 2 of the best tackles in the entire NFL, obviously in Rashawn Slater and then Joe Alt. Your bookend tackles are gone. Mekhi Becton wasn't the same player that you hoped he was going to be. A lot of injuries. Your rookie guards weren't really playing up to their potential. I think Keenan Allen is probably gone. But then you're going to be building around Ladd McConkey, great. Quentin Johnston, great. Trey Harris, great. And then at tight end, you got a really young, exciting receiving threat in Gadsden. At running back, you got Hampton, who's a good receiver in his own right. Then you add Mike McDaniels to the equation. And you're like, ooh, I'd love to see what Mike McDaniels can do with Justin Herbert. I'd love to see that play out. So he set up really well, in my opinion, to increase his value. Trevor Lawrence was stuck in like this, the public perception of Trevor Lawrence was just mediocrity. And this is why we always preach patience with quarterbacks, I mean, how many quarterbacks, how many examples do we have to see where these guys going in the top 10 in the first round, they disappoint early on, and everyone is not on the same timeline. Everyone is not on the same timeline. And when we say coaching staff matters, supporting cast matters, ownership matters, I don't think there's a better example of that than Trevor Lawrence, okay? Because the coaching staff that he has been through in his career, the different head coaches, I mean, Liam Cohen was just absolutely huge for Trevor Lawrence. It's crazy to think that Brian Thomas had a stinker second year and Trevor Lawrence just had an absolutely beautiful season, like his best season ever by far. Putting up over 21 points per game, a career high there. And it's just shocking to think about how they actually worked all that out. He's flinging the ball down the field. He's got confidence. There's just a different swag to Trevor Lawrence. You're starting to see that Clemson, elite prospect start to kind of come out of its shell. Brock Purdy. It's just trusting Kyle Shanahan, really. Brock Purdy with 22 points per game this year. Had a great season, even though there's a lot of turmoil internally. Right? George Kittle had some injuries he dealt with. Brock Purdy had some injuries he dealt with. Brandon Ayuk never even showed up. Juwan Jennings had injuries. Ricky Pearsall had injuries. I mean, name a single weapon that he could rely on week in, week out. You're going to find it hard to do so. And still, he found a way to get it done for fantasy football purposes. I think Ricky Pearsall has a great future ahead of him. I think Juwan Jennings would be a great number 2. The George Kittle injury certainly doesn't help. I think this is a team that I would not be surprised if they're aggressive adding to their weaponry this offseason. I would not be shocked if they go back to the receiver well in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, if they look at free agency, if they try and move on from Brandon Ayuk. But, I mean, props to Brock Purdy for putting up a great year. And then Jackson Dart. Now, you can make a case to put Jackson Dart higher. I would not be upset if, you want to tell me Dart should be at the top of this tier. My only concern is, you know, what does the next coaching staff have in mind for him? Because I really feel like there were training wheels applied after his second concussion, which was week 10. I really feel like this coaching staff said, okay, hold on a second. And honestly, you know, Jaden Daniels has some of those same issues where it's like, you really need to learn how to protect yourself, man. I know you want the first down. I know you want that extra yard, but you need to figure out how to extend your career here a little bit. From weeks 1 to 10, Jackson Dart was one of the best starters in the entire NFL for fantasy football. But again, beyond that point, the training wheels started to come up a little bit. Let's look at that. So weeks 1 to 10 on the left side of your screen, averaging 17.8 points per game. He drops about 1.5 points per game from week 11 onwards. The passing attempts go up in that span. They want him to be more present in the pocket. And obviously all of the rushing numbers go down, right? The rushing touchdowns per game go down almost by half. Rushing yards slightly go down. Rushing attempts go down by about a full attempt per game. So he's a really good prospect. Clearly should have been drafted much higher than he was. And I think this is putting respect on his name here at 13. Good news for Jackson Dart is, I mean, you want to talk about supporting cast. Yeah, the Giants could draft another receiver here in round 1. They've got Malik Neighbors. They've got Wan'Dale Robinson, Cam Scatteraboo, Tyrone Tracy, great pass catchers out of the backfield. I like what Dart's got set up there. That's a tier that I'm rolling with. Am I missing anyone? Do we think I'm missing anyone? I want to hear from the chat. I want to hear your guys' opinions as well. Okay, let's hear from the chat. No Dak in C tier. I definitely thought about it. We'll have a conversation. You know, he could very well be deserving of that C tier. We'll talk about him here in a second. Josh Dobbs says, I don't see my name anywhere. Yeah, well, Josh Dobbs is automatic 101. All right, so we know Josh Dobbs and what he can do. Delusional fan said, Caleb is gotten overrated. For fantasy purposes, he barely cracked 20 points per game, all but maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think in the first half of the year, he was very hit and miss. But, I mean, he had one hell of a year, in my opinion. I think he had a great year, and he's only growing. I mean, to have a second-year quarterback average almost 20 points per game with those kind of weapons around him and that coaching staff, I think he grew a lot. But I respect everybody's opinion. I definitely want everyone to feel free to share their opinion. Scribble says 49ers going to need to invest in a pass catcher with likely out or with Kittle likely out. I kind of get that. Zoe says, I'm going to get roasted for this take, but with Petzing going to Detroit, Goff is a top 10 quarterback next year. Oh yeah, Goff can be a top 10 any year. He's one of those really safe, you know, under the radar type of names. All right, let's jump into the next tier, shall we? Let's jump into tier number D, and let's reveal it here. So we've got 4 names. Those 4 names for me: Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Jordan Love. You know, if I am playing Dynasty in a 2 to 3 year window, I think maybe I am being a little unfair on Dak. It's just, I think the reason I don't have him in this tier above is because from a pure flexibility perspective, Dak Prescott is the hardest to sell in D tier, in my opinion. You guys can disagree. But I also think he would be by far the hardest to sell in C tier. All these guys in C tier, whether you're a rebuilder, a 1-year punt, a contender, whether you're looking to sell to a 1-year punt, a rebuild, a contender, these guys are all fluid. I mean, you can put them on any roster and they're going to work great, and everybody wants to buy them, and everyone's comfortable with them. Dak Prescott, I don't know that I agree. He was a great asset this year. In fact, we were really high on those Cowboys. If you guys remember last offseason, we called them the next Cincinnati Bengals because we predicted a bad defense and offense that needed to throw. That worked out really well. We had plenty of hits that, takes that didn't hit. But he was great. If George Pickens signs long-term, I mean, you got to be absolutely thrilled with that. But if we're playing in the span of a three-year window, I can understand why someone would say, Zach, I mean, in 3 years, he's 36. I don't know. The reason I didn't put him in that tier is, again, simply for flexibility purposes. The only teams that want to acquire Dak Prescott are teams that want to compete. That's not the same case for all those guys in C tier. You know what I mean? That's where I stand. So if that's a valid reason or not, I can understand where you guys are coming from. Right after that, Baker Mayfield, who I would say was probably one of the more disappointing quarterbacks in fantasy this year. Huge regression. Now, again, context is really important because when you go and you look at the Bucs this year, how many injuries can we talk about, right? Mike Evans could not stay on the field. Emeka Egbuka played through a hamstring injury. Chris Godwin in and out of the lineup with injuries. Jalen McMillan almost tore his neck off his head. Tristan Wirfs in and out of the game with injury. Like their entire offensive line dealt with injuries, some of them out for the entire year. Bucky Irving dealt with injuries. I'm not convinced Bucky Irving was ever healthy this entire season. So I want to give grace because context is clearly important, but there's no dancing around it. It was a really disappointing year for Baker Mayfield. If you're out there and you're a contender, I view Baker Mayfield as this offseason's buy of what Dak Prescott was last year, right? Connect the dots with me. Last year, we were telling you to buy Dak Prescott if you're a contender. They just brought in George Pickens. They had great weapons around him. He's already shown in the past that he has clear top upside. I feel the same way with Baker Mayfield. If you're a contender and you're looking for a quarterback too, I think he's a great buy low right now. Jared Goff is just so safe. Jared Goff is just so safe. Honestly, I feel like Goff should be at the top of this tier. I really do. And I kind of want to make that change right here live with you guys. I think Goff should be at the top of this tier. Just the weapons around him. It's hard for him to really fail, right? 17 or more points per game in the past 3 years. In the past 2 years, 18 and a half or more points per game. And just, weapons for days, right? Just an absolute armory of weaponry. Isaac Tesla, we want to get him more targets, but how do we? Every time he catches the ball, it's a touchdown. Well, you got to give Jamison Williams his. You got to give Amon-Ra St. Brown his. You got to get Sam Laporta involved. Oh, and by the way, Jahmyr Gibbs could out-target any of those guys any single night. It's a great offensive line, a great system, a lot of trust they've built. So I think I would probably put Goff at the top of that tier. And then Jordan Love. It would be a nightmare if he went to the Packers. Disappointing, honestly. Disappointing. Jordan Love is probably the quarterback that I'm having the most difficult time ranking. In fact, like as we're talking here today, I don't 100% know if I would put him in this tier. As we're sitting here and we're talking it through, I mean, what do we think? Do we think Jordan Love is D tier worthy, or should we drop him a tier? I'm honestly not really sold. I don't have a great close on Jordan Love. I could be convinced to move him down a tier. I'd love to hear from you guys. So I just put a poll in the chat. I'd love to hear your opinions there. But, good weapons around him, good run game with Jordan Love, good defense. I think the problem with Jordan Love is the defense when Micah Parsons is healthy. The defense is so good that you almost rarely need, you almost rarely need to throw the ball. Right now, the chat is pretty much split down the middle on if we're going to move Jordan Love down. I think I'm going to do it, though. I think I'm going to move Jordan Love down a tier. I think I'm going to put him at 17 in the E tier. All right. Let's jump into that E tier. Again, I appreciate y'all being here with me. If you didn't hear earlier, we are going to do a giveaway for one of my live team playbooks. All you have to do to enter is simply like the stream and type QB, code word today's QB. And that will enter you into today's giveaway. We'd love to hear you guys' feedback if you enjoy this type of stream. Scribble says, I'm hoping Zach Robinson does some things for the offense there in Tampa Bay. Yeah, I would love to see that. Scribble says Dak is great, but I wouldn't take him over any name in tier C. That's kind of where I agree as well. Yeah, so we're on the same page there. Okay, let's jump into that E tier, which, by the way, will have Jordan Love. And let's talk about tier number E. Again, in case it needs to be clarified, these are bucketed values. I really could care less if you want to put one name above the other, or if you have a strong, indication that, hey, this guy has to be at the top of this tier. This guy's got to be over this other guy. I have them all valued in the same bucket, and I wouldn't really be bothered either way that you look at it. Tyler Shuck, I think, is an interesting name that we should discuss. Older prospect coming out, right? Had a ton of experience. It's funny because I remember Spencer Rattler playing pretty well, honestly. And most of us were like, oh, don't replace Spencer Rattler. Rattler's playing well. He looks like a real guy. And then Tyler Shuck comes in and it's like, oh, damn. I mean, they might have something here. The rare potential round 2 hit for a quarterback. They might actually have something here in Tyler Shuck. And if you compare his first 4 to 5 weeks in the NFL compared to his last 4 to 5 weeks in the NFL, you'll see just ridiculous improvement. Like, just noticeable improvement in his game. From 10 points per game to 19.6, quarterback 37 in that first span to quarterback 8 in that second. The completion percentage, obviously, it goes up to 70.1%. Passing yards are up. Passing touchdowns are up. Interceptions are down. Adjusted yards per attempt is a big number there. He was top 15 in that number. And Tyler Shuck looks like a dude. Now, the reason I can't put Tyler Shuck higher than this, as our tiers just updated, I can't put Tyler Shuck higher than this simply because it's just not enough time yet. I've not seen enough yet. Sure, if you want to put him, at the end of D tier, I'm not going to fight you on it. But I've not seen enough yet. We have seen way too many examples of quarterbacks playing well as rookies and then falling off. It's happened way too many times. With CJ Stroud, I think everyone's, overreacting a little bit. Certainly, a guy, if you guys remember on the channel 2 years ago, we were heavily suggesting for you to tier down from him. This was when he was in tier S. We just couldn't understand it. We were telling everyone to tier down from him as much as they could. But I think this is where he belongs. He's already shown his upside, and I think, it's the Trevor Lawrence story for me. It's the Trevor Lawrence story for me. A guy shows you how good he can be. A guy shows you flashes. Yes, it's not always going to work out, but I'm not ready to completely give up on CJ Stroud. Sam Darnold had a great year. He and Jason were in an absolute synergy. But he's going to have to put up 4,035 touchdowns or something to really help you win leagues. And then Daniel Jones, the last thing I really want to talk about in this tier. The reason I have Daniel Jones here is because looking at this incoming rookie quarterback class, I really struggle to see a scenario in which the Colts can replace Daniel Jones. I mean, Fernando Mendoza is going 101. I'm not convinced that anybody else goes in the first round. So what are they going to do? Try and replace Daniel Jones with a second, third, fourth round guy? I don't know. I feel as if you're going to see Daniel Jones and the Colts agree on a long-term extension this offseason. He had one of his better years ever in the NFL. He was a perfect fit for this offense. And I think he's going to re-sign. The Achilles injury is a little bit difficult because obviously we can't exactly predict what his mobility will be after that. And Daniel Jones had some mobility to his game. But again, it's just another quarterback, highly drafted, didn't do it right in his first stint. And then in his second stint, he really found his home. And I think Indianapolis, to me, is the right spot for him. Let's jump into tier F. You can make a case if you want to put some of these names higher. Stafford, it's just, take the Dak Prescott example and just expand it by 100. Your flexibility on Matthew Stafford is an absolute zero in Dynasty. I don't care if you're playing in a 3-year window. For the next 3 years and for the previous 3 years, you can't sell him to anyone outside of a contender. So if you got Matthew Stafford and you want to rebuild, you're thinking, can I get a second for him? And that almost never meets the production. So purely ranking him from a flexibility perspective, there is no flexibility. Cam Ward. I was not a big Cam Ward guy coming out last year. That doesn't mean that his career is not written yet, right? Brand new coaching staff. Hopefully they can give him some weaponry. DK is a nice name. There's some names that kind of stepped up there with Elike Omanor, Chimere DK. Calvin Ridley clearly not going to be a franchise player for them. But this is just about as boring of an offense as you've ever seen. They need to infuse it with some explosiveness. Because as much as I'm not a Cam Ward guy, what the hell is he supposed to do? Okay? What the hell is he supposed to do? Kyler Murray. We're going to talk about Kyler Murray in an upcoming video. I do think he's a good buy low. However, I think the reason I'm so low on him is because I think it's obvious at this point that Kyler Murray is not a franchise quarterback. He's a bridge. So if you have Kyler Murray in Dynasty, I actually think he's a good buy low if you're going to contend in the next couple of years. He's going to be a bridge for someone. However, I can't rank him much higher because the days of him, having those 20-point per game seasons, I think are over. Bryce Young, put together a good year here. At least you're seeing progression, right? You're seeing progression in points per game. You're seeing progression in passing yards per game, touchdowns per game, completion percentage per game. And obviously, Tetairoa McMillan was a huge add. I will say, I wanted to see a more significant improvement after drafting a guy like Tetairoa McMillan. But as someone who had Tetairoa McMillan in the Flock League and watched every Panthers game, it was hard to watch because it's quite obvious that this coaching staff did not want to trust Bryce Young. They wanted to play well defensively, establish the run, and have him manage the game. And Bryce Young is never going to be someone that gets you 5 to 10 rushing touchdowns in a season. So that's my F tier. And down to the G tier, we've got names like J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, Malik Willis, Tua, Sanders. Honestly, if we're going to say Kyler Murray is a good buy low, Tua is also a really good buy low. And you're going to hate to hear this from me, but Tua is going to be a starter somewhere this year. He's just going to. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. A lot of teams need quarterbacks. And he is going to be a bridge for someone. He was a great prospect coming out. Don't forget that. Could Tua Tagovailoa be the next Sam Darnold? Could he be the next Daniel Jones? I'm not saying it's 100% certain, but he's so cheap right now that I don't see why you wouldn't take the risk on it. It costs you virtually nothing. Virtually nothing. JJ McCarthy, I got to eat some humble pie here. He was a player that I was actively buying last year. And really, we had never seen a quarterback fail, in this offense, with this coaching staff, with the supporting weapons around him. But JJ found a way. JJ found a way to fail in this environment. And I'm scared. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what the future holds for a JJ McCarthy, because I want to have grace for all these young players. And I'm definitely not saying that his career is over. But I will say, it's about as poor of a rookie season as anybody could possibly have. I mean, I almost want to completely different players, but I almost want to compare him and Anthony Richardson's rookie season side by side. You remember how Richardson, this is going to be hard to hear for a lot of people. Anthony Richardson had a higher completion percentage in his rookie year than JJ McCarthy did. I know he technically wasn't a rookie, but it was his first year starting, so give it a break. But Anthony Richardson, who we talked about being a historically inaccurate first-year passer of the football. JJ McCarthy, with the weapons that he had around him, found a way to complete a lower percentage of his passes at 59%. just ridiculous. Couldn't take care of the ball. Wasn't accurate. Did not look comfortable in that pocket. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of it. And I don't want to lie to your face and pretend like I do. I mean, if he can figure it out, he's got good mobility. He's got great weaponry around him, but obviously limited player. Michael Penix was showing some great strides with Drake London. He was great for Drake London. Malik Willis is like the most obvious name who, if he's out there on your waiver wire, you need to go pick him up. He could be a bridge quarterback this year, could have an opportunity to start. Shedeur Sanders, wasn't really a big fan of him coming out after he was drafted so late to the Browns. I don't think I personally saw anything that showed me he's going to be a starter in the NFL, but I think he's currently the favorite to be the starter in Cleveland. And then this last tier, I mean, Rodgers, I mean, who the hell knows? I mean, he could retire in an hour. We have no idea. Richardson, I don't think he's ever going to start for an NFL team. I think we're on the Trey Lance train, but that kind of career arc, I could be wrong. Mac Jones, everyone wants to talk about Mac Jones as this name that's going to move somewhere this offseason. I can't understand how. I don't see Mac Jones being moved this offseason. I just don't get it. Mac Jones played well for the 49ers, a team that has had so many injuries to their quarterbacks in the past 5 years. And he's one of the best contracts in the entire NFL. Mac Jones is owed $2.8 million this year, a $3.9 million cap hit. I can't for the life of me understand why Shanahan, who has had so much history with injured quarterbacks, just saw Mac Jones help them get to the playoffs, a really important piece, why he would willingly trade him. Because what are you going to get from Mac Jones? You're going to get like a fourth or a fifth round pick? That is not worth to Shanahan, who has his job right now, who doesn't care about what a fourth and fifth round pick can do for his team. Shanahan has his job right now. He wants to win playoff games. He wants to win the Super Bowl. He has a vast injury history at quarterback throughout his tenure there, all the way back to Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. You go back to all these names, Brock Purdy. I mean, if anybody is traumatized as a head coach for quarterbacks, it's Shanahan. So I don't understand. He's under contract. He's not a free agent. So everybody wants to go out there and buy him. But in my opinion, and I could be wrong, it wouldn't be the first time, I do not see a scenario in which Mac Jones is not a 49er. And I don't see a scenario in which they trade Brock Purdy. That is one of the best contracts in the NFL. I don't think it's worth getting whatever draft pick you get for Mac Jones rather than having him. I mean, if we're playing with a Madden mind, we're like, well, why wouldn't you trade Mac Jones? Why wouldn't you get more assets for him? Because this isn't Madden, right? This isn't Madden. That's just my opinion. Everybody can have a different opinion, obviously. And then we've got Fields, Smith, and Cousins to end that tier. I don't think those guys are really ever going to make a big impact on your team moving forward. And then that last tier is just a bunch of no names. Joe Milton's a fun stash. I do like stashing names like Winston, Ewers, these guys here who I think if things go in a certain direction, ultimately they could, you might be able to sell them for a third or a future fourth or something. Those are my tiers. What do we think, guys? What do we think? I want to hear your thoughts. Anything that you heavily disagree with, or do we think it's a relatively sound list? Yeah, I probably didn't even need to show you the I tier. Let's just pretend like that tier doesn't even exist because, quite frankly, it really doesn't matter, does it? But what do we think about the tiers? What do we think? And pretty sound, Mike says. Pretty sound. Anything we would disagree on? Scribble says, I got Kyler for the 204. I think that's a pretty good trade there. CB says, give me Ward over Stroud. Okay. It's interesting. I mean, I don't see either of those guys ever being like rushing threats. And I think Stroud's already shown you what you want to see Ward do. But hey, if Cam Ward's your guy, like I can respect that for sure. Like the tiers, solid. Love it. Mike says he thinks Dak's in C tier. And if you want to put him there, that's okay. That's a good question. Dub Sport says, where would you rank Shuck if he had another good year of play? Oh, if Shuck ends up being like a 17 point per game scorer, you probably got to put him up there in the C tier, right? Like dart range. He's not a young chicken though. He's only like, will be 27 this time next year. Jonah thinks Knicks is a bit overrated. Fair enough. Those are the tiers. Like I said, I've never done this before on a stream. What did you guys think? Is this an enjoyable way to talk about these rankings that I'll never do in a video? Did you guys enjoy that? I would love to hear if you guys liked being a part of it, liked talking it out. Because if so, I'm going to plan more ideas like this in the future. Like I said, all stream, if you haven't entered our giveaway for today, now is your last chance to do so. All you have to do is simply like the stream to be entered. And step 2 is to type QB. And we're going to give away one of our live team playbooks, which, by the way, that is the next thing I need to do on today's stream. Shout out to all of our people who have playbooks in. We're going to try and get all these out and done for y'all today. So it's a great day to, submit one of those playbooks. Okay, what's the feedback like? Jonah says he loves it. Scribbles loved it. Dub loved it. Sports loved it. Mike loved it. Love to hear it. Do I think Willis is worth the 202? No, I think you're probably paying too much for Willis there. I mean, I would argue that if Willis signed somewhere as a starter, he's probably worth the 202. So I think right now in this unknown season, I think you're probably overpaying for him. All right. Let's jump into some this giveaway, and then we're gonna get some of these reviews done. This will be my last stream of the week. We'll be live again next week, obviously. We've got 27 entries. Like I said, all you had to do was like the stream and type QB in the chat. Appreciate you guys big time for being here. And like I mentioned, we'll jump into these team reviews. If you want to have a team looked at today, it's a great time to get a review done. Thought about jumping into a fast draft, but we'll see. It's the end of the week for me. It's actually Friday where I am, so might close off the week here. Okay, 30 entries. 30 entries. Let's go ahead and copy these bad boys. And I want to tell everybody best of luck. If not today, there will be plenty of chances to win. But let's go ahead and find out who's our winner for today of the live team playbook. And our winner is, it's a little bit glitched there. It is Paul Visak. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. But Paul, all you got to do to claim that voucher is DM me on Discord. There's my username on the top of your screen. And tell me your Flock Fantasy username. Send me a screenshot of your YouTube account. That way I can verify you, my friend. But again, I appreciate you big time, my dude. We are going to jump into some team reviews. And someone asked, how can I get my team reviewed? Let me put a link in the chat for y'all as a pinned comment in case you guys want to jump in and get into the queue for today. Absolutely no pressure to do so, obviously, but I will be jumping into team reviews now. If you want to get a team review from me, there's a couple ways that you can do so. Firstly, we announced last week our all new best ever annual Mother Flocker membership. Okay. I have no doubt in my mind, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is the best thing we've ever offered for our annual Mother Flocker members with the promo code LAND on the Flock Fantasy website. And you will see that link in the pinned comment. Now, in this annual Mother Flocker membership with us, that's the wrong screen. In this annual Mother Flocker membership, by default now, you get a live team playbook, okay? So everybody gets a live version of their playbook now, no matter what. It used to be an upgrade. Now you get it by default. You get the War Room, which we'll show you in a second, which is a game plan for your rookie draft. You get the Trade Hotline, which we've never done before. 12 vouchers over the course of a year. So think about it. From a Dynasty perspective, you're covered everywhere. You get a personalized team review, you get a game plan for your rookie draft, and then you can come back and ask as many questions about your team from trades after you've had your team review as you possibly could want. Obviously, you get the rookie report, which is already out. New versions will come out here soon. You get the FastDraft credit as well, $10 FastDraft credit, which, by the way, I realize I've done a terrible job of telling you guys how to claim that FastDraft credit. Shout out to the guys over at FastDraft. I said, hey, I just want to give my people as much value as I possibly can. What do you think about giving them $10 credit, if they become members with the promo code Land on the Flock site? And they were like, yeah, that's an awesome idea. Let's do it. So if you want to claim that credit, all you have to do is go to our Discord, and under the Land tab, you will see under announcements, you'll see a FastDraft credit tab. Fill out this form. And it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'll hook you up with $10 for your FastDraft, and then we can jump into some drafts together. You can join my group chat if you'd like, because I am constantly over there on FastDraft, jumping into rookie drafts. In fact, I want to show you guys the latest team that I drafted, because right now the ADP is just insanely exploitable. All right, let me show you all this monster. So just this week, we got Mendoza in the first, and Jadarian Price in the second, then Stowers, Omar Cooper. So we got two of those Hoosiers, Skylar Bell, and in the 6th round, I got Mark Fletcher out of Miami. So if you want to sign up to FastDraft, you've got that link in the chat, same one as the team review. But I think by far this is the best deal that we've ever done on the Flock site, and I know the feedback has been absolutely incredible. Complete access to the site for 12 months. Not only the Dynasty draft guide, but the rookie draft guide, 12 vouchers, a live team review, $10 FastDraft on credit. It's by far, if you want to get a team review, the best way to do it. No question about it whatsoever. However, if you're out there and you're already already a member of a different promo code, then you can still get a team review with our a la carte options. Okay, so if you're already a member of Code Domain or Code Flock or whatever the case may be, you can still go to the personal advice tab on the Flock site, and you can go out there and get either a live team playbook, the priority pass where you skip the line, or the pro pass, which doubles your playbooks. All right. So again, the reason I went through that is because we had people in the chat like Asda here saying, how do I get a team review? So there you go. And yes, you can get a team review without being on Discord. Okay. Let's jump into the first review here, which is from Testurin. Testurin, I think that's how you say this name. Team name Despicable May. This is a 12-team Superflex Start 9. Is it Start 9? Let me double check on the back end. I thought it was Start 10. I think this is a Start 10. Yes, it is Start 10. So we're looking at our middle ground for your league format. You can start up to 5 receivers there. All right. He says, curious what you think best plan of action is for the rookie picks, finished second this past year. So you're currently ranked first on the site. I believe this is according to my rankings. And let's have a look. In a start 10, you're starting Drake May, Daniel Jones, Taylor, I guess Rico, Puka, Jefferson, Colson Loveland. That's 7. And then you would flex, I guess, Diggs, Downs, Jennings. I am really confused how this is the first best team. Maybe because you have the best asset for me in Dynasty in Drake May. That's probably pushed you up the board. But I don't think you're the best team, if I'm going to be honest. Obviously, the site has its own algorithm. I don't think you're the best team. I think you're definitely lacking depth compared to some of these other names. Like, Team 2 is definitely in a better position to compete. I would say the same thing for Team 3. Probably Team 4. But you might be... Oh, this team's in a better position to compete. You might be the 5th or 6th best team, but Drake May is probably pushing up your team a little bit. Oh, you guys can only see me. Sorry. Yeah, so this is the team that we're looking at. Sorry, guys. Like I said, Drake May's pushing him up the board a little bit there in the rankings, but not great depth at running back and wide receiver. And again, these teams just they're more built to compete right now, in my opinion, than your team is. So not at all to say that you have a bad team by any means. But I don't think you're like a top contender. So I think that's important to state. Okay. Right now, your untouchables would be Drake May, Puka Nacua. I would be holding JJ McCarthy because he's not worth anything. And if he pans out, you would regret selling him. I'd be holding JCM. He was pretty good analytically last year. I'd hold Dylan Sampson with the Judkins injury, and I would hold probably Tez Johnson. You can drop. Look, I wouldn't drop these names because your waiver wire is so empty. There's not really anything interesting on the waiver wire. But if you had to make room, I would probably let go of Royals and Bond. But I don't really want to let go of them, if I can afford it. Just simply because there's still potential there. They're not likely going to be any big assets in the future. But there's just not really much on your waiver wire that interests me. Anyway, so we have the 111, which I'm not a big fan of that pick this year. Whether you're a rebuilder or a contender, I don't think it's got a lot of inherent value. That doesn't mean that we sell it for nothing or, we don't get the most value out of it. Of course we will. But let's have a look at your overall team grade. I would say this team is very top heavy. Yeah, across the board, you're top heavy. There's no depth whatsoever. Overall team grade as of today. What do we think? I mean, I feel B- is probably appropriate here. I'm feeling B- simply because you have so many top tier assets that I can't rank you too low, right? The combination of May, Taylor, Puka, Jefferson, and Loveland, that 5 there is pretty impactful. But your team as a whole is certainly not. Maybe C+ is more fitting. We'll say C+. I would. What direction would I go here, man? I don't think you have the assets to fill out the depth that you need. We could play in a world where we trade the 111 for a veteran running back. We trade your 27 first for more depth. But you need no injuries to occur. You need everybody to play up to their potential. Ultimately, I just think way too many things need to go right for you to be a serious contender. Because again, it's a start 10. So right now we're starting May, Jones. If Jones is even, in Indianapolis, I think he will be. Then Taylor and who the hell knows at RB2. Puka, Jefferson, Loveland. And then you have to start 3 more names. I just maybe Watson continues to break out. He's definitely ranked too low. I don't know, man. I think too much has to go your way here. I really think too much has to go your way, which makes me hesitant to really, be all in on this team. I think I'm going to go 1 year punt. I think I would punt for 1 year. But you could certainly try to go all in. I just don't think the result's going to end up being a championship. So, is this you? Is this your team, Trez? He says, second year of a startup, if that matters, definitely have no depth and got carried to the finals by Puka and May. Yeah. I think I do a 1 year punt. And unfortunately, a lot of the action for you is not going to happen in the offseason. And I'll explain what I mean by that, obviously, but let me ask you, before I proceed, is there any specific direction you wanted to take this, Tress? Because I'm going to take it in a 1-year punt, but did you want me to take it in a compete window? What did you, this is what I would do, but I want you to get the most value ultimately out of your review. But let's move forward, and you just tell me if you would prefer going towards a compete. Let's open up that war room and let's have a look at it. Hard part here, again, without depth, you really don't have many impactful picks anyway. You've got that 111, which I'll tell you what, not many people are attracted to this year. The 111, that late first range, is about as unattractive as it's ever been. So you're going to be in this range with, names like Sadiq, Coleman, Price, Emmett Johnson. Katrin Allen might not be there. Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper. That's kind of the range I think you're going to be in. In that late second, it's, again, difficult to tell you exactly what that's going to look like, but I would imagine you're going to have some of these guys who are going in the 3rd, 4th rounds available, maybe. Your Claibornes, Daniels, Branch maybe be moving up here soon. And then obviously at the 305, it's BPA. We don't really know. In fact, why don't we just say here to 305 because it's such a wide range right now. Okay. Would I want to buy a veteran with that pick at the 111? Tress says, definitely don't think it's good enough compared to others. Think it's good enough to make the playoffs, but happy to punt if that's the best option. Don't like the pick, so wanted to move on to cheap veterans if possible. Okay. If we move on to veterans, then you are going to put yourself more in a contending range. But look, we'll go through our options. If I were you, my number one goal would be to trade that 111 for any future first. That doesn't have to be in 2027. It can be in 2028. That really freely allows you to go to the punt. The 208, I just don't know what helpful player you're getting here. Let me kind of think through, because you really need a running back. You don't even have an RB2, man. So the 208, I mean, you could maybe get like a unproven guy. I'm thinking a Trey Benson, Bashul Tootin. I'm thinking Blake Corum maybe. But you're not getting a guaranteed starter here. Tyler Algier. You don't have Tyler Algier, right? Yeah, Tyler Algier. I don't know though. I don't think you're finding the right name there. And I do agree with TD here, which is what I'll say all offseason. I agree. Like, if you have these, if you've got these late picks, unless you can sell them for names that we feel comfortable with, like these free agent running backs like Brees and Ken and all those, then you might need to wait until like the combine or some hype happens with this class. And that 305 you can use in any packages. I'm not even opposed to trading that because your depth is so shot, man. I'm not opposed to like trading back to like the second and getting a 27 second in return. So for example, who has a lot of picks? So if you could trade back to like this guy has like the 202 plus his 27 second, again, that helps you commit to the 1 year punt. Obviously, I'd love for you to, if you can't get the 202, maybe you go 206 there. That guy has a 201. Same idea. The 205 is maybe a sweet range, but he doesn't have his seconds. The 204 is a real sweet range there. So again, that same idea. That could work for you. Because right now, you're so thin. And it's not a great time to trade off of a lot of the names that you've got. That would be my plan. If you want to trade the 111 for a veteran, I'll show you what you might be able to get here in a second. But that's the game plan I'd have for your rookie draft personally. But I think it's probably time to go to the chalkboard and come up with some more ideas there. So if you want to explore the idea of like, hey, I want to go the veteran route, at the 111, Ken Walker, instantly the name that comes to mind. Why do I say that? Well, I just made a trade for Ken Walker. What was this, like 3 or 4 days ago? This was actually right before Charbonnet tore his ACL. And this was in the Charlie League. So the reason I'm saying this is because I'm showing you the context as to why I made this trade. This is my team in the Charlie League. It's a super flex, I believe, start 9 or 10. And I had the 111, I had the 411. I went out and traded for Ken Walker because I just wanted one more depth running back. You know, I'm starting right now Burrow, Jones, or one of these other guys at quarterback 2, Bijan Achane, JSN Puka, Gadsden, or one of those other tight ends. And then I'm flexing your Nikos, your Jamesons, Walker. You know, these guys are all options. So I felt like it made sense for me because Walker was that piece to just kind of give me that comfortability to go out there and, again, compete this year. Now, your team I don't think is in that position. But, again, if you're wanting to explore, like, what is the veteran market there, I would say Ken Walker definitely comes to mind. And I want to give you every option that you can. Chase Brown is probably not going to happen. That's probably too expensive. Travis Etienne is an older version of Ken Walker, and it doesn't look like he's going to go back to Jacksonville, so there's a lot of risk there. Javonte Williams, if you buy him for the 111 and he signs in Dallas, you get a steal. If you buy him for the 111 and he doesn't sign in Dallas, you're going to overpay. But there's no other names. Like, you're not saying the 111 and getting a Judkins, Scalaboo, Harvey, and it doesn't make sense to do it for Henry or Woody or Warren or one of these names. And if the 111 was already declined for Ken Walker, the most I would add is like that additional second. So if they're not going to take the 111, the most I would add on top is like the 208. But I think beyond that, you're just forcing adding Ken Walker, and I don't think he's like the exact perfect fit for your team. Now, I'm going to give you some in-season trade ideas because right now I don't think it's a good time to sell a lot of these names. So like Daniel Jones, terrible time to sell him. I believe he's going to re-sign in Indianapolis. That will give you a sell window. Rico Dowdle, terrible time to sell him. You want to sell these running backs in season. We've proven that with the Dynasty trade dial, which is another thing that you get with our membership. Obviously, you guys know. Stephon Diggs, you sell in season. I think Justin Jefferson, there's no way I'm selling him right now, even if I'm punting. He's way too cheap. So you need to wait until in season if you want to look at selling him. Juwan Jennings, I think those are really the names that you could sell. Now, for Daniel Jones, you know, he was being traded for like early seconds this year, and he had no long-term contract. I think that's probably where you would be, and I don't think it's worth selling him for an early second. So I would say multiple seconds, not late, if you're going to move him. Is there any team that desperately has a quarterback need? He's like an ideal quarterback 3, really. You could do like a Murray-Jones swap if you wanted to grab like Kyler Murray back. maybe that 205, and then you send your, what did you have, like the 306 or something? That type of idea could work. This guy could use a quarterback 3. I don't love the options here. Yeah. Again, I think you're going to have to wait until end season. Rico Dowdle, I would think you would want any second in any year if he signs a long-term contract. Same thing for Stephon Diggs. Same thing for Jennings. Jefferson is, again, after he recovers value, because I'm almost certain he will, you're going to want to tear down from him, right? So when he recovers his value and everyone's, he's back up there as like a top, 3 to 4 dynasty receiver, can you tear down to a Tetaroa? Can you tear down to a Chris Olave and a Emeka Egbuka? And you can't do these right now, right? It's not possible right now to effectively tear down off of Justin Jefferson. Maybe Roma Dunze, maybe Luther Burden. So you want McMillan in like a 27 first, for example. If he really recovers his value, then, maybe you can get 2 future firsts. If he's back up there as like a 22 point per game scorer. But this would be the game plan for almost all of these names. Obviously, if some of them break out, then that would change. But best case scenario for Egbuka, best case scenario for Olave. I would argue that I would only take 2 future firsts for the Bears receivers. But those are probably your ideal candidates. But look, that's one hell of a plan. I think we've covered all of our bases. I want to give you a chance to chime in and let me know if you have any final questions here, but that's one hell of a plan in my opinion. I think we hooked you up well there, and want to see if you have any final questions for me, my friend, before we move on to the next team. But what do y'all think about that trade? Getting Ken Walker. I feel pretty good about it, but obviously not everybody's going to agree. And that's okay. Tress says, looks good to me. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you too. So just so you know, you should get that playbook, and it will be sent to the message tab on Flock Fantasy within the next 3 to 4 business days. Okay. So bank on that coming here again in the next 3 to 4 business days. You should see that available. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for letting me review the squad. Okay, we did get NJ Casanova submit, so I'm gonna get through all of these. Now, I am gonna have Casanova jump the queue because he purchased the Pro Pass. He's obviously Casanova, longtime annual Mother Flocker member, so he got the playbook. So I'm gonna hook you up here, Casanova. Let me know if you're in the chat, my friend. Appreciate you big time for showing some love, consistently being a supporter. And I'm glad you are enjoying those new offerings. He says I'm here. Awesome. All right, let's have a Geese. I'm going to set up your chalkboard on the back end. We are in a Dynasty 1 quarterback, 10 team start 9. Is that right? Dynasty 1 quarterback, 10 team start 9. Always have to make sure because we had a glitch not too long ago where 1 quarterbacks were actually super flex and it wasn't showing up. No tight end premium here. It doesn't look like. Okay, Olave Oil is the team name. We are currently ranked 7th on the Flock site. And like I said, 1 quarterback, 10 team, start 9. So that's a pretty big lineup. That's our middle ground, which means you can start up to 5 receivers most likely. It'll change depending on if you have like 3 starting receivers or 3 flex spots. But same idea there. The site's got your quarterbacks at 7, your running backs at 8, your receivers at 8, and your tight ends at 9. Kind of middle of the pack across the board there. Let's have a look. And I'm going to go ahead and give you that free voucher for the Pro Pass. So just keep in mind, you can't upgrade that voucher to a Pro Pass again. But you can upgrade it to a Priority Pass if you choose to. But you can't upgrade it to another Pro Pass. Okay. Casanova says, I know this team is on a full rebuild. I figured pick Love with the 101. Don't know if I should tear down from Burrow to get additional assets. All right. So again, we're ranked 7th. And you're saying that, hey, I know I'm in a rebuild. That's obvious. So that's good. We're on the same page there. All right. We've got Burrow, Darnold, Stroud. That's way more than enough at quarterback. We've got Henderson. Outside of that, not a lot of security. At wide receiver, Olave. Outside of that, not a lot of security. Really not a good tight end room. So, yeah, you're very clearly not a contender. Very clearly not a contender. You got 2 firsts this year. The 101 is very impactful. And 2 firsts in 27. I'm going to give your draft capital grade a B+. Because you don't really have any seconds this year. I don't love this class anyway, but actually, I would say A-. That 101 is just really impactful this year. Overall team grade, though, got to be honest. If you're in a start 9, right now your starting 9 is Burrow, Henderson, Love, which is good, Olave, Wandale, Goddard, and then you got to start 3 more names. I don't know. I don't think this team's in a great spot, man. I'll probably say when I combine, you know, the idea of your draft capital, without the draft capital, it would be D range, but with the draft capital, I'd probably put you at a C flat. There's certainly some work to be done here. And I imagine you probably know that. I'm definitely going to punt this year. Not a chance I'm going to try and be competitive and barely make the playoffs and, you know, be a mediocre team. Untouchables, you don't really have any. The closest is Henderson. On holds, you got a lot of guys I want to hold. I like to hold Bushel Tootin, JCM, Caleb Johnson. All those guys I want to hold. I don't think their story is really finished. I would say the same thing for Matthew Golden. I'll put those guys on your playbook, but I would also add Coker and Horton and Williams and Besh and Knoll. As far as drops, you can definitely drop Samaje Perine. I think you can drop Felton or Restrepo if you like. Is there anyone interesting on your waiver wire? Oh, yeah. Maybe not because... Yeah, maybe not really. I was going to say these quarterbacks, but it doesn't look like anyone cares about quarterback in your league. Yeah, your waiver wire is not interesting. Emmanuel Wilson, I like. And Pat Freiermuth. You know, if you want to pick those guys up, great. If not, I don't blame you. There's really... it's not a very vibrant waiver wire, if we're being honest. Not a lot of value to be found there. Okay, let's pull up the war room here. Again, you have the 101 and the 110. So let's come up with a game plan. Do you think you prefer to keep the 101 and draft Jeremiah Love, or are you looking to get a haul out of it? I'll give you both options, but I'm just curious where you currently stand if you had to, you know, kind of choose a lane. Obviously, the good news is, despite your team being in rough shape, that pick alone, the 101 this year, is going to make a huge impact. And in a way, I feel like it's more impactful this year compared to previous years because the class as a whole is not very strong. So, you know, there's no Brian Thomases that you're tearing down to, or Quinshon Judkinses, or, you know, there's not the Jackson Darts at the end of the round, or the Lovelands, or the Warrens, you know. Yeah. Casanova says, honestly, I was set on Love, but I don't mind either direction. Okay, let's play out the world then. All right, walk with me. We go Jeremiah Love here at the 101. If you stick and pick at the 110, I don't want this to become like a theme, but at the same time, there's no one I'm obsessed with here, y'all. But at the 110, you're probably in this range of Sadiq, which honestly, your team could use a Sadiq. I'm not convinced he's like a Colson Loveland level prospect, but he's incredibly athletic. It's your Jonah Colemans, your Prices, Surratts, Coopers. That's kind of that range. All right, if we were to tier down from the 101, I think because there is such a lack of depth on this team, I'm not opposed to, if you're going to move the 101, it needs to be a haul. You need a legitimate haul. So first off, we got to stay on the 102 to the 105 if we're going to. Oh, no, you can't. It's the one quarterback, isn't it? So Mendoza doesn't help you. You can only tier down to the 104. Do not tier down further than that. I'm begging you. In this class, please. So why don't we start by looking at those teams? The 102. I know it's only one spot, but it's going to take a lot for me to tier down from the 102. I'm thinking like the 102 plus Egbuka. I don't know if that's enough. I want Marvin Harrison too, and I'm going to give you my 110. You had the 110, right? Okay. So, do we think this is enough for Jeremiah Love? Or am I being too much? I'm trying to be realistic, but also shoot for the moon. So you're losing Love and someone random in this class. You're gaining your favorite receiver in the class, Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison. So you're building your wide receiver room up pretty much straight away. I mean, your receiver room then would be, Tyson, Lemon-Tate, whoever it is, plus Olave, plus Egbuka. Hopefully Marvin can break out. I don't know. I don't know if Marvin is like that piece that, really gets me excited. What you could do is you could try to go after... So remove the 110 from the equation and instead ask for like a Kyle Pitts or something and bet on his, career arc. Maybe let's just say just starting. So that could certainly be a nice haul for you. The 102 Egbuka and Pitts. I would prefer going like a 27 first here. And you could send back like one of these veterans like Jacoby Myers. Because you can't undersell the 101. It's a generational, as everyone is saying. It's a top 10 pick, generational running back. You can't undervalue it either. And the guy at the 102, I would certainly call a contender, right? I mean, what does he need? He's got Daniels. He's got Gibbs, Genty. He's got Jefferson, Egbuka, Jameson, Marvin, and plenty of tight ends. Shoot, I mean, I would first try Fannin. He's not going to want to give you Fannin. Although his 27 first is not attractive, so you should try and grab the first from the other first that he has in 27, which is owned by Shadow. Make sure you take that mental note. That's an idea there. I don't hate it. Yeah, Butterball. I would say I definitely don't think he's average, but I have been less, willing to label him a generational prospect. I just feel like that word is being thrown around too much in that scenario. But I do love him. I think, I wish there was more room to have conversations, and unless you say he's generationally elite and then you're opposed to him, which is not where I stand, but often people put me in that box. Okay, that's the 102. Honestly, you might be able to stretch more. I'm just kind of giving you a baseline. That's the 102. Who's got the 103? The 102 is a good fit, by the way. Okay, the 103 and the 104 are owned by the same person, and they're definitely a contender. This could work out well. So let's explore this idea. So here we would want the 103 plus the 104 plus, let's say, a 27 first. And then we'll give you back Jacoby Myers. This is a win-win in my mind. You might say, how, Zach? Okay, this guy gets Jeremiah Love. So he has a starting lineup of Bo Nix, Jeremiah Love, James Cook, Pickens, Waddle or A.J. Brown, Kittle if he comes back healthy. He still has a 107. He could grab Sadiq. He could trade for a tight end. And how many starters do you have? You have 9 or 8? I can't remember. 9. He flexes A.J. Brown. He flexes Chris Godwin. He's got plenty of picks to build out the rest of his team. But he finally, what this team is missing is like a pillar, an absolute stud, an absolute top 5, type of name. That's fair enough, Casanova. I think this is a huge win-win for both of you. And at the same time, you're realizing that 27 first is probably not going to be top 6, but you're getting 2 guaranteed picks in 2026 top 4. So you're grabbing Tate and Tyson, Lemon and Tate, Lemon and Tyson, and a pick in the future. I think this makes a ton of sense for you. And unfortunately, you can only really go to 2 owners because we don't want to tier beyond the 104. But there's options there that make sense. At the 110, I mean, like I said to everyone who's rebuilding, if you can trade for any future first, just kind of re-roll that dice. I think that makes sense. But that'd be my game plan for you. I think those are some solid ideas. Like, I really feel like I'm cooking up for you here. But that's a rookie draft plan if I've ever seen one. But let's jump into the chalkboard and come up with some more ideas, keeping in mind that you have the 110. So let's keep that in mind as we continue to look at your options. Okay, so if we're punting this year, we can look at, I doubt a team needs quarterback, but Sam Darnold is expendable, obviously. I just don't think quarterback has any movement. I wouldn't move any of your running backs outside of James Conner, and that's more of an in-season thing. I don't know if he's going to be worth anything. Wan'Dale Robinson, I wouldn't mind moving. He's going to be a free agent. You don't really need to move any of these names. Jacoby Myers is probably the one name I would say, hey, I don't really think I can make a case as to why you would be aggressively holding him. I would say the same for a Goddard, Juwan. But with those names in mind, let's close the war room for now. Sam Darnold. Does anybody in your league need a quarterback? I'm going to guess the answer is no. This guy's ranked 9th. He has Bo Nix and Tua. He's probably fine. The guy who's ranked 10th has Dak, Love, and Tyler Shuck. It's a 10-team, 1 quarterback. Yeah, I mean, Darnold's not going to have any trade value. Wan'Dale Robinson. I'd love to trade Wan'Dale for like a young, unproven name like a Jaden Higgins. You already have Matthew Golden, don't you? Yeah. Let's keep looking. Ricky Pearsall, if you could find a way to make that work. That might be too expensive from your side. You could add like Wan'Dale and Goddard. Spelling that wrong. Does he have a tight end need by chance? No, he's got Bowers. I mean, could you chuck him James Conner? Could you chuck him Darnold? Do either of those get the job done? I don't know. You'll find out. They're just ideas. I like that as an unproven buy. Adonai is interesting. Ooh, I would love to do a Pat Bryant deal here. Ooh, yeah, I haven't been able to talk about him much on the streams. Let's go get Pat Bryant and like a second for Wandale in a third. I like that a lot. If that's possible, I think that's clutch. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. You could try and buy low on Travis Hunter. Remind me, what picks are we working with here? I'm trying to remember myself. The 110. If you don't know what you want to do with the 110, could you package Wandale plus the 110 and grab a Travis Hunter? It's a great one-year punt option and get something small in return, like they have the 204, 304. Something small in return, like maybe a Trey Harris. Jonathan Brooks is actually perfect. Oh my God, I love that trade. Oh, that is perfect if you could pull that off. And there's a lot of risk with Travis Hunter, but I think you're in a position to kind of take on that risk. So those are some great ideas, I think. Dallas Goedert, does anybody even need a tight end? Goddard is just not really worth anything. It's pointless to talk specific teams. If you can get any second in any year, I think you take it. Multiple early thirds are fine. Jacoby Myers, same type of deal. If anybody, I would say any mid-second. Early to mid. I would say any early to mid-seconds would be ideal for Jacoby Myers there. James Conner in season, you'll really take, I would say, like any late second, early third. You know, just what can you get for him? He's not really helpful to you anymore. And then, like we said with the 110, any future first is ideal. But I'm obsessed with that deal if you could pull this one off right here, man. I love that deal. Casanova, let me know if there's anything else you want me to go over, but between that chalkboard and that war room, I think we got you hooked up, bro. You can obviously take a screenshot of that war room anytime. And as you know, longtime supporter, frequent flyer, maybe we could say. You'll get your playbook within the next 3 to 4 days. So let me know if there's anything that I can cook up for you. Says, no, looks good. Appreciate it as always. Appreciate you, dude. Thanks for showing some love to the stream. All right. We've got 3 more in the queue right now. I am still accepting reviews for today. Of course, there's absolutely no pressure, but this will be the last stream of the week. So either you'll be at the top of the queue for next week, or you can jump into the last for this week. You can check out the pinned comment. We've got the live team playbook by default, the priority pass if you want to skip the queue, the pro pass if you want to double your reviews. Okay, let's go ahead and let's jump into the next one. And that is Ryan. What's up, Ryan, my dude? Another person, longtime supporter. Appreciate you being here. And annual Mother Flocker member. Okay, this is a Dynasty Superflex Start 11. Dynasty Superflex Start 11. That's a big old lineup. That's a big old lineup. What, you can start like 6 wide receivers or something crazy like that? I like it. I like it. So, Ryan, here's the context for Ryan's team. Ryan says, I've built this team up over the last few years, tried making some moves in season to tier up at wide receiver and or tight end, but didn't find a good deal. Ended up finishing third, 6-point passing touchdown. There's a premium bonus for first downs. Is that for all players? What moves would you suggest? Use picks to tier up? Okay. Okay, cool. Finished third this year. You're currently ranked second. And we've got a lot of picks to work with, but none that I really love. Of course, as always, we'll get the best game plan for it. Currently, the Flock site has you 5th on quarterbacks, 1st on running backs, 4th on receivers, and 5th on tight ends. So, start 11. That's a huge lineup. We are starting Daniel Shuck, Bijan Achan, Lamb, Williams, Pitts. That's 7. Then we're flexing names like Smith, Brees, Harvey. That makes 10. That last flex spot is going to be one of Warren, Marks, Benson, Tootin, Addison, Pearsall, Golden, Ferguson. Pretty good depth, honestly. Really solid team. Really solid team for how, all of the positions you have to account for. Yeah, I like the squad. You got a first and 27. I will put this at a... I don't think I can go A range, but this is a really solid B+, and I don't see a reason for you not to go out there and contend. I like the squad. I would love to have more teams like this. Draft capital grade, I'm just going to put like B-. There's no real impactful picks this year, unfortunately. Untouchables. Your Jaden Daniels, Bijan Robinson. You can hold Jonathan Brooks. You can hold Bashul Tootin. You can hold Matthew Golden, Ferguson. Definitely Ferguson. I love Ferguson. You can drop Taj Brooks if you want. You can drop, Lambert Smith if you want to clear space. But you don't need to because your waiver wire is pretty much naked. I'm not really going to the waiver wire with any intentions of improving the team. You're probably aware of that. Okay. So we're definitely going to contend. It's a good squad. I like this team. I really like this team. I wish we had picks that were more attractive because, full transparency, it's going to be really difficult to move your picks for anything worth value. But I'm going to put together a game plan for you here. And we'll do our best to maximize the value of those picks. So we've got some thirds, we've got some fourths, obviously the 111 and the 211. Let's jump into the war room here and let's see what we can kind of cook up for you. Okay. At the 111, if you're going to stick and pick, what does your team need? You don't have any real needs, honestly. Like, you could be a guy that takes a shot on Ty Simpson if he's a first-round pick. But you don't need any more middling RBs or wide receivers. But that range is, like I said earlier, Sadiq, Coleman. You could add, like I said, Ty Simpson to this range if he goes first round. At the 211, it's both of these spots. It's too far away to know what the consensus is right now. So let's go BPA. BPA will be my rankings, which you'll have access to as a member, as you know, Ryan. Longtime supporter, Ryan. Appreciate you. Okay. Maximum value. If you can trade that 111 for any future first, it's a no-brainer. However, you are definitely a team that I would say I would like to tier up, which you've already mentioned. And I think we'll look at most of those tier up options on the chalkboard. But let's write down like our general game plan here. The 111, let's just say plus vet for a tier up. I think that's my ideal outcome with that 111 because you can add a Ken Walker. Ken Walker becomes your RB5. You can add a Travis Hunter. Maybe he starts for your team. Maybe he doesn't. I think you've already got decent depth. And I prefer to make a more impactful move because you've got like 4 guys on your bench that you could start in, given this format. Again, I think all these picks we use in packages. Like these picks later in the draft, ideally they're just that last piece that pushes a trade over the line. I don't see a reason to do anything else with these picks considering the way that we're competing. So let's jump into the chalkboard and let's actually get specific with those tier ups. because I think you've got plenty of names you could tier up from. I think running back, you're really stacked. What I would love to do is tier up either. I'd like to tier up at wide receiver. I'd like to take Devonta Smith and make a move. That would be my ideal scenario here. So Devonta Smith plus the 111. You know, can we move into the Chris Olave range, Garrett Wilson range? You know, that's probably where you could land. You know, maybe in some of these you can ask for like a pick swap where you get a future second and, you know, you send a future third. Just hypothetically, you know, if you wanted to add to the deal here. Again, I can't promise you what's possible there, but I'm going to get as creative as I can for y'all, as I always do. Honestly, the big fish here will be a Jefferson move. The 111 and, you know, going out and getting Jefferson, I think it would look like this, where we go the 111 Devonta Smith and Jordan Addison. And then how many of these seconds that you have would it take to get the job done? Right? I'm remembering you have the 211, the 307. Now, would I sell Jefferson for this? Of course not. I think that's way too cheap. But of course I'm going to try and, you know, buy low on him right now. I don't mind a T-Mac deal or a London deal as well. I would do the same thing for London. You know, maybe you don't need to add that last third. Maybe you don't need to add the picks at all if it's London. For Tetairoa McMillan, you certainly don't need to add. I don't think you need to add Jordan Addison into that. Maybe it's just cleaner. It's the 111, Devonta Smith, and the 211. But I think that's really where, like, you're not getting Neighbors, Amon-Ra. Could do Nico. Nico would be cheaper, but I don't know how you feel about that situation. If Pickens signs, I don't mind. Nah, I don't think it makes much sense there. That's my ideal scenario for you. I think that would work out really, really well. Now, wide receivers where I think you should tier up, but in case you're not able to, the other idea I would have is tacking that 111 and Bryce Young. And then instead of relying on Shuck to really be like that guy, you could look at deals where you get some veterans that you know you can trust. So, for example, Dak Prescott, maybe Brock Purdy. You know, that kind of range of player. I don't think you need to worry about tight end. Pitts looks like, you know, he's really figuring it out. So that's a ton of ideas for you. Again, between the chalkboard and the war room, I think you're absolutely set there. I appreciate you big time, my dude. And thanks for the constant support. That was a fun one to look at. I think it honestly was made easy for me because I just had so many ideas that just were flowing because you had so many assets to work with. So oftentimes teams like that, obviously it's made a lot easier. Dub says, crazy how one season makes Puka in 17 look weird. Right. Yeah, I guess because Adams, you know, is just so known for number 17. We kind of had a bigger transition period where it felt normal. So I definitely get what you're saying. Okay, let's jump into Jonah here. Is Jonah on the stream with me? Let me know. No stress either way. Jonah, we have got a 10 start 10, 12-team league, super flex with a premium. So you're looking at that middle ground there. Okay.
Jonah says, this is a league where I showed you I got T-Law for what ended up being the 112. I unfortunately made a mistake by trading away Brian Thomas for Diggs and Kittle. Oof. Yeah, that's tough. If you're doing this review on the 23rd, it's my birthday, so it's a birthday present from Land to me. Ooh. Well, I am actually I'm on the 23rd. It's the 23rd where I live. So technically it's your Australian birthday. Technically, it is your Australian birthday. It's not your American birthday yet, but you'll get this time code. And happy birthday to Jonah, man. Happy birthday to you and yours. Hopefully you have a good day, lots of stuff planned. Okay. This league, you are currently ranked, I believe, 6th. So you're right there in the middle of the pack. And let's have a look at the squad. So in a Superflex start 10, you've got Trevor Lawrence. You don't really have a quarterback 2. But you've got Achane Cook. You've got Amon-Ra, Higgins, Kittle. Then you need to start 3 more names, which would probably be Judkins, Henry, Diggs, maybe Evans if he comes back, Warren. No real impactful pick here in 2026. In fact, your first pick being the 211. Honestly, it's going to make it really difficult to be flexible. Yeah, that's not ideal, but from a flexibility perspective, really not ideal, but we'll have a look. Overall team grade. Yeah, you're just so reliant on a lot of things going right. I can't sit here and tell you not to go out and contend when you have Lawrence, Achane, Cook, Judkins, Amon-Ra, Higgins. But a lot of things can go wrong this year. And I could easily see you needing to punt mid-season. What do I mean by that? Well, you don't really have a lot of flexibility to add quarterback. So quarterback 2 is going to be a problem. Derrick Henry is crucial to your lineup. Could he fall off? What about Jalen Warren? Stephon Diggs? Will Mike Evans come back? Will George Kittle be healthy? There's a lot of questions we have to ask about this team. So I think for the first time this year, I'm going to whip out the in or out. Because I think you need to play this by ear in season. Overall team grade, I'm probably putting you at like a... I'm between like C plus B minus. I'll be nice and I'll say B minus, but it's between those two. Draft capital grade, not great. Without a pick this year that really matters. All right, untouchables for you. Amon-Ra, Achane. Holds for you would be Mac Jones, Tootin, Knoll, Tonjes. You can drop Michael Mayer if you need to make space. On your waiver wire, I don't think Devon Bailey should be there. I don't think Tez Johnson should be there. I think they should be rostered. So if you can find a way to add them, I think that's going to be good for you. Let's jump straight into the war room and let's discuss what we can do. Because again, I'm going to position this as a contender. But if you're in the middle of the season and things are not going well, I think you need to keep your 27 first so you have that flexibility to flip it into being a seller in season next year, should you need to. Second half of that, second round, it's difficult to say. Really, the 211 plus the 212, you're going to be looking at one of these names, right? The Claiborne's, Daniels, Branch, Moss, Jamari Taylor, Singleton. I mean, it could change, honestly. It's just too early to give you a great answer. And then those late picks, you can just go BPA. I don't believe personally that if you were to stick and pick with these options, that you would have some impactful additions to your team to compete this year. I would rather spend those late picks I'm going to say 211 or 212 here on some veterans that I really want to buy right now. So let me pull up this list because I was actually just looking at this week. And there's a good group of cheap veterans in that range that I feel comfortable going out there and buying. For example, at running back, if you wanted to add to your running back room, I'd love to go add like a Jonathan Brooks and kind of bet on him bouncing back, if you will. If he can stay healthy, you know, who knows what's possible. I don't think you can buy a veteran like a Brees or a Kin with the assets that you got. I do not mind going out there and buying a Caleb Johnson. You've already got Jalen Warren. I think, you know, that 212 range is a pretty good range for a Caleb Johnson. Obviously, nightmare rookie year, but, you know, there might not be a drafted running back higher, a running back drafted higher than him this year anyway, outside of Jordan Love. And that's, you know, Matthew Golden comes to mind. I'd love for you to add a Matthew Golden. In fact, he would be a great fit because of the needs of your team. You know, maybe you need to add, you know, an additional pick on that, but Matthew Golden is a name I'd love for you to go out there and try and grab. Yeah, Pat Bryant, we talked about earlier on the stream. Risky one that you could try is Brandon Ayuk. He's really affordable right now. Also, Terrence Ferguson. So what did we say? We said Brandon Ayuk. It's very risky. I'll recognize that. And Terrence Ferguson. Ayuk, Ferguson. I like buying Terrence Ferguson for your team specifically because with Kittle's injury, we don't really know exactly what his future looks like. So that's a great plan, in my opinion, for your rookie draft. That's a pretty clear, concise plan on how you can kind of operate moving forward there, Jonah. But let's jump to the chalkboard here. And keeping in mind, again, that you've got the 211 and the 212. I'm just keeping that in mind as we come up with ideas on how we can improve the squad. Okay. I just don't know how you make an impactful move with those picks. Like, can you get some more security, like add Michael Penix to one of these deals and, you know, get a veteran that's older but more reliable? You know, can you go get a Sam Darnold or Jared Goff would just be awesome. Darnold might be possible for a deal like this. I think Jared Goff, you might have to add that additional second to even have it considered. But really, if you're going to try and contend this year, you need a much better quarterback too. And honestly, you need Mike Evans to come back or that wide receiver room is just toast. Speaking of wide receivers, I'd love to go buy a veteran that can help me compete. I'd love to go buy a Terry McLaurin if you're going to try and compete this year. A Chris Godwin, a Christian Watson, right? Those type of names can make a lot of sense. Chris Godwin. Who else did we say there? Yeah. I like those names a lot. Also, just to kind of protect yourself, I don't mind the idea of getting off of a Derrick Henry right now. If you can, you know, pivot to equivalent names in Dynasty, equivalent value names. So if you can pivot from a Henry to an Etienne Walker Williams, I think it makes a ton of sense. Because, you know, Henry can fall off at any moment. We know that. If you can kind of reset the clock there a little bit, that gives you a little bit more flexibility, I would say. But outside of that, if you decide to punt mid-season, let's just put this down. If you punt mid-season, these would be your trade away targets. Okay? So That would be Derrick Henry, Jalen Warren. We had Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans. Those guys just really don't make a difference on your team anymore. George Kittle. I would say those would be the main guys that you're trying to get, market value for. But I think that's one hell of a plan for you. Obviously, I know you're not on stream today, but happy birthday, dude. Happy birthday. Thanks for the support. Thanks for letting me look at the squad and getting that pro pass earlier. I'm glad we were able to look at 2 of your teams this week. Okay, let's jump to the last one. I think this is the last one of the day, which my voice is starting to go, so that works out well. Let's have a look. Jamie, what is up? Jamie in the building. So Jamie has a start 11, and it's a super flex league. There is a tight end premium. Jamie says, a few whiffs in the startup last Feb, Mixon and Pollard, 26 first for Darnold as I left quarterback 3 too late. Then lots of injuries cost the team. Not sure what I think of the team overall. Some very solid pieces and what ifs. Golden, Toots, Besh. Okay. The team name is The Team's Just Shite, which reminds me of my UK friends. I have some bad news. We have no 26 picks. No 2026 picks. So from a flexibility perspective, there really isn't any flexibility, unfortunately, with this roster, which means the War Room is not going to be really helpful. The War Room's not going to be the move for your team, but we will obviously use a chalkboard. Okay. At least you have your picks in 27 because you can be flexible. So, again, Superflex start 11. That's a big lineup. But in a Superflex start 11, you've got currently Daniels, Darnold, Young on the bench. I don't know who your RB2 is outside of Bucky. Then you've got London Rice, Loveland. That's a decent start 7 outside of RB2, but you still need to start 4 more names. Outside of T. Higgins, I don't know where those 4 other names come from. I really don't. Like, what world does this team compete this year? I don't know if there is one. You don't have a guaranteed RB2. It could happen, obviously, with one of those names. But you've got one flex you're confident in Higgins. And then beyond that, I love Golden, McMillan, and Besh, but I don't think you can count on them. I don't think you can count on those running backs to, help you compete. I struggle to see why we wouldn't punt this team. Y'all let me know if you disagree. Let me know if you think I'm crazy and if I'm reading this wrong. But I think this is a punt because there's just too much that's got to go right, man. So I'm going to 1-year punt this. And if I'm being honest, the team is probably a C- right now. I don't think you're really in the best position as of right now. But glass half full, you've got, good foundational pieces. The untouchables here that you don't move. Jaden Daniels, Drake London. You've got great holds that could develop next year, like Corum and Tootin and Golden and McMillan. You got names that you could drop to clear space if you need, like Davis and Hollins. Waiver wire is naked, though. There's not really much on the waiver wire. I mean, you could add Jordan James if you wanted. But also, at least you have your 27 first-round picks, so that allows you to punt. It would be worse if you don't have your first next year and then you're just stuck in this land of mediocrity. But as a punter, you're certainly going to be looking at capitalizing on some of these veterans. I love Bucky Irving, but I might even consider moving him. I love Rashee Rice, but I might consider moving him. Same with T. Higgins. And those are really the names that I think we would be looking at. So let's jump to that chalkboard here. I think this is where the real meat of your review is. So let's find a team that needs a quarterback. team number 1's a great example. They're going to add Jeremiah Love to this team, but you don't really need to sell Darnold in a 1-year punt, honestly. It's only if it makes sense. Yeah, what is the range right now for a Sam Darnold? Like late first, I would imagine, like 110 range, which is what this guy has. Let's see. Yeah, I would say, 110, 201. And, the guy that you're selling him to has a clear need at quarterback too. That could work. Of course, you don't need to sell Darnold. What I would love to do is I would love to sell Darnold and get to that 103. So I'd love to sell Darnold, and what did you have? The 111? What? No, you didn't have any picks this year. How can we get to that 103? What if we sold Darnold and Rice for the 103 and the 104? I would love that. That would be the perfect spark to this 1-year punt. You move off of Daniels. You move off of Rice with the legal stuff. I think that is really ideal. I don't know if you could sneak in like an additional second there, like they have the 202. Honestly, I don't mind even doing like a 27 second. Could you throw him? No, I was going to say, could you throw him Bucky? I mean, you could do the same deal with Bucky. All these deals with Rice, you could do with Bucky as well. Depending on what he prefers. But that makes a lot of sense, I think, for both of you. That's good that you had 2 teams at the top who instantly needed quarterbacks. That works out really well. I was worried that you might not have any leverage. It's a super flex league, so I don't even mind going to the 105. So you could also do Darnold and... No, Darnold's not going to be a leverage piece for this team. The team that has Kyler Murray, I don't imagine they're competing. And I don't really want the 108. Are any of these other teams really quarterback needy? This guy is, but he doesn't have any picks that you love. I mean, look, I'm not opposed to like sending Darnold for a 27 first, and have a Terrence Ferguson chopped on top or something. I'm not really opposed to that idea either. All these other teams don't really have a quarterback need. At least it doesn't feel like they do. Okay, who has a running back need? Team 1, again, has a running back need, which is why the Bucky Irving trade is probably so perfect for them. I think it makes a ton of sense for you guys. But he's going to get Jeremiah Love. Yeah, but again, those deals that we already suggested are perfect. This guy was Swift as his RB2. I mean, can you grab the 104 for Bucky Irving straight up, or the 103? And then because you're punting, betting on one of these wide receivers that are about to go top 10, as much as I love Bucky Irving, it's a safer move. There's more safety in that asset long term, and you can have more flexibility next offseason. That makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't trade Bucky for less than the 105, though. Pollard, I'll take any second in any year. For Rashee Rice, I'll take either 2 future firsts or like the top picks, which we already kind of showed. For T. Higgins, I would take an early to mid 27 first. Outside of that, you probably hold him. But that would be the game plan I'd have for you, my dude. And like I always tell people, you get your playbook within the next 3 to 4 business days, but I appreciate you letting me look at the squad. There is some work to be done, no doubt about it, but I think you got good foundational pieces, though, and you can keep building off of them. You don't really need to sell Rice or Higgins. I just wanted to give you all the options. You don't need to sell Darnold, but I think all the trades that we suggested make a lot of sense with the goal that you currently have in mind. But yeah, appreciate you, man. Thanks for showing some love to the stream. We are all caught up on playbooks for the week, which is awesome. Got that queue cleared for the first time in a couple weeks. So it's a great time to submit your playbooks if you want to get some reviews going on next week. Early next week, I'll be live with y'all. But I appreciate y'all watching the stream. I'll see you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. We got a bunch of new content on the channel, so go check it out. And nothing but love. See ya.